What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Robyn's ninth album, Sexistential. This is Robyn's first album since Honey came out back at the end of 2018, almost 7.5 years between albums. And of course, Robyn, one of the legendary pop figures out of Sweden, whenever she releases something, it is of course notable. What's most welcome about Robyn's ninth album, Sexistential, is that this is clearly a return to the sound of her album Body Talk and less like her most recent album, Honey. Linking up with her longtime producing collaborator Claes Alund, this is very much pure Swedish synth pop. It's everything you really expect from the most well-known Robyn music. And on top of that familiar production, this is also a really interesting and engaging lyrical message because Robyn, now in her mid-40s, is singing about becoming a single mother in her early 40s and going through IVF and having some pretty amusing ways to talk about that journey. To me, the clear highlight of the album is clearly the title track, Sexistential. These lyrics are so amusing, joking about wanting Adam Driver to be her sperm donor. This is quirky, but it's still a bop. I love those glitchy vocals. It's without a question the highlight here. But sonically, the entire album sounds really good. And if there's anything to really criticize with it, is that it's pretty brief. It's pretty short. It's only around 30 minutes long, but there's a lot packed in there that's cool to listen to. And this is music that still sounds relevant today because Robyn is a pioneer for the now much more in vogue and common alternative pop scene that we know with many famous faces today. It was really cool, for example, to hear Charli XCX last year pay that forward with the Brat remix album and Robyn's feature on 360. Looking at some of the other tracks here, Really Real, the first song, that pulsing bass, like pure trance beat, honestly, right away really grabs you. And then with the chorus, I think has really nice vocal melody, kind of dusting you with some kind of twinkly fairy dust on that beat. I think the bass part itself, the trance part itself, kind of reminded me of like Gesaffelstein or something right away, but pretty cool. And I think Robyn, there's a soothingness to the way she sings that meshes very nicely with these, quite engaging layered production styles. Dopamine, the use of these like robotic vocals, I think is pretty cool. This was the lead single from back in November. Blow My Mind. This is actually a rework version of a song of hers from 2002, which I was not aware of going in. Really noticeable reverb with some auto-tune vocals on Robyn and more of those robotic vocals as well. Just the kind of the whole gamut of vocal effects here is pretty interesting. And nice bass drum. I think the hook's pretty good. Sucker for Love. This is a song she had previously recorded back in 2014 or so. Snares are great. There's synths everywhere. Another really solid hook. It Doesn't Mean a Thing. Robyn talking about, kind of being horny and going on one night stands and being really content with that. I think it's lyrically pretty interesting and engaging with that message there. Heavy auto-tune hook, but still very catchy and, again, pretty eclectic. I think Robyn is letting loose on this album, not afraid to, let that freak flag fly and just be honest about what she's going through and how she's feeling about things. And I appreciate that, authenticity, that openness. Talk to Me, very lively bass tempo. I think the vocals here are very energetic and has a really big chorus, probably the biggest chorus on the whole album. The only song I didn't really care for too much is Light Up. Really heavy effects here, but I think it's just a bit too messy. Doesn't quite come together for me, just a bit noisy. And then the last one, Into the Sun, bass drum, still sounds pretty good. So yeah, short but certainly sweet album. Obviously, when a pop star is in their 40s, it's hard to put like massive expectations on them from a creative output standpoint, and 7.5 years between albums, it's obviously quite long and all that. But Robyn was able to come back with clearly something that made sense for her to put into work, into a body of work. And I think that was really delivered on. And, will she double down on the sound of Body Talk moving forward production wise? But I'm inclined to say yes, just because that feels like her most natural mode, across most of her discography after all. And Dancing on My Own from that album has become just a massive track, massive cover song, etc. In the last 10 plus 15 years since it came out, right? That is increasingly becoming a big part of her legacy, but on the other hand, like that album is so widely celebrated as a whole as well, so it makes sense for her to call back to it. Let me know though, what did you think of Robyn's ninth album, Sexistential? What did you think of it? And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.